Still baking those addictive Cheddar Bay Biscuits, Red Lobster has embraced its strengths by sticking, or not, to the dishes people love. Join us as we wistfully revisit some beloved menu items that have disappeared, maybe forever. Among the dining public, a side dish vanishing from a menu doesn't usually provoke much excitement. Nobody's going to shed many tears if plain broccoli or rice gets swapped from time to time for something different. Unless it's French fries, then we'd cry. So when Red Lobster quietly killed its Lobster Bisque, regulars didn't know how to process the news. There was outrage, there was grief, there were even vows to go elsewhere. And the dish's popularity isn't purely anecdotal. It's backed up by numbers. Our own mashed poll found the Lobster Bisque was a favorite of a whopping 27% of participants.
That is a lot of people.
Inquiries into where the slurpable starter went kicked into gear during the pandemic, which offered a plausible excuse considering the food shortages and social distancing of the time. But fast forward to 2024, and that excuse no longer holds water, or at the bare minimum deserves a revisit. One ex-user called out the chain's hypocrisy, asking, how does an establishment called Red Lobster get rid of Lobster Bisque? And over on Reddit, another user yearned for Bisque gone by, posting, "Miss that Lobster Bisque. I still can't believe they got rid of it." Maybe like the rest of the world, your head was in a different place when Red Lobster's Dew Dewgarita dropped in September 2020. The pandemic was raging, everyone was quarantined, and restaurants could barely keep the doors open. So it's understandable if the Dew Dewgarita escaped your notice. Here's the origin story. The drink was conceived to promote the chain's then recent pivot to Pepsi beverages by fusing the classic Mexican drink with the iconic neon green fizz of Mountain Dew, plus a few other ingredients, namely a sour apple liqueur and a sugar garnish dyed bright red.
Red Lobster claims the new cocktail bears beautifully with its Cheddar Bay Biscuits.
Unfortunately, the overall consensus was that it tasted like a dorm room experiment gone wrong.
I know it's called Dewgarita, but doctors advise don't garita.
Rather than remind people of the ill-conceived potion, Red Lobster erased it from the menu without warning 2 years after it first appeared. Heading into Red Lobster for the full bib treatment means, if things go well, you may not have room for a sweet treat at the end of the meal. But how can anyone turn away a cookie? Never mind a hot-from-the-oven cookie dolloped with ice cream? One dessert highlight the eatery formerly kept on deck, with which to tempt guests who were already stuffed to the gills, was the warm chocolate chip lava cookie, which appeared on menus throughout the 2010s. And if you think it's just another BJ's Pizookie imitation, think again. The molten chocolate core was deliciously decadent, maybe even addictive. So to discover that it was sidelined for cheesecake was grave news.
This is tragic.
Rumblings over its apparently permanent suspension didn't appear online until at least 2018, when it seems the cookie skillet was ousted out of nowhere. One disappointed Redditor summed it up, writing, "Such a dumb move to get rid of that dessert. It was one of my favorites ever. I literally crave it." If you can batter up onion rings or tater tots, why not squid? Calamari makes the rounds in Mediterranean and red sauce spots alike, and odds are you'll also spy the Italian staple hawked at sports bars and big-name dining franchises. In spite of fierce competition, Red Lobster's rendition was poised to be a popular seller. The batter-fried squid, tumbled together with a mixture of panko-crusted broccoli and red bell pepper, was a flavorful, if a bit greasy, dish. After an unannounced hiatus from the menu, the appetizer re-emerged towards the end of 2020. But where were the broccoli and bell peppers? And why were there now raw yellow banana peppers on the plate?
It's not the same thing.
Diners weren't happy about the revamp, voicing their displeasure and confusion on social media in the hopes of seeing the dish return to its original recipe. One thing commenters agreed on, tossing in banana peppers, raw ones at that, diminished the irresistible crunch they longed for in the breaded vegetable blend. It's what arguably made the former starter so tempting. True, the dish isn't entirely a bygone memory. You can still order calamari at Red Lobster, but it isn't the same. Forget mismanaged promotions or private equity woes. The ultimate fondue, one ex-user volunteered, was the real reason Red Lobster went bankrupt. They got rid of their ultimate fondue. Many moons ago, customers could order this cheesy seafood goo served in a sourdough bowl that was as over-the-top as it was hopelessly scrumptious. Sadly, the Red Lobster ultimate fondue fan base has given up hope of ever sampling the real thing again, resorting to trading recipes over the internet.
But what about my fondue?
Yes, why did it disappear? It's a mystery, but in 2009, an organization called the Center for Science and the Public Interest included the ultimate fondue in a roundup of dishes boasting excessive amounts of calories, sodium, and fat. It's possible the staggering 1,500 calories and more than a day's worth of salt convinced higher-ups to retire the delicacy so as not to scare away more health-conscious consumers. There isn't much stopping Red Lobster from 86ing a popular menu item on a whim. Consider the comings and goings of the Lobster Pizza, a thin cracker crust topped generously with both Maine and Langostino lobster meat, as well as Italian cheeses, basil, and diced tomatoes.
I miss it, I miss it so much.
The starter was regularly ordered by diners as early as 2014 and appeared on the menu as late as October 2023, then vanished with no explanation. Admittedly, the chain has honored the flavors to a degree with its lobster flatbread, but if you're pining for the original, move on. The Lobster Pizza looks to be a thing of the past. Once upon a time, a group trip to Red Lobster meant sharing a tray of shrimp nachos, plump pink shrimp piled high with neon cheese, jalapenos, sour cream, and salsa on a bed of colorful tortilla chips.
Nachos.
But sometime over the last couple of years, the dish vanished from circulation. In a June 2020 Facebook post, Red Lobster followers posted pleas like, "I miss the shrimp nachos app. Bring it back, please." Unfortunately, the restaurant offers vague responses that don't indicate a return anytime soon. Why the crispy shrimp lettuce wraps were forced to walk the plank is beyond our understanding. It wasn't as though the dish was a dud. Low carb, coated in glaze, and delectably spicy?
Go get me a lettuce wrap.
Say no more. But suddenly fans of the leafy appetizer were left wanting. In 2021, an ex-user quipped sarcastically, "Red Lobster had a spicy crispy shrimp lettuce wrap with jalapenos, which was on my top 10 list of the best things I've eaten, so of course they discontinued it." Pasta done the Alfredo way, ultra cheesy, bathed in an opaque cream sauce, is a perennial winner, which is why so many restaurant chains offer a variation on the luxurious dish.
Alfredo sauce.
Mega franchises usually toss in grilled chicken, but being a seafood joint, the chefs at the helm of Red Lobster upped the ante with chunks of juicy crab meat. At some point, though, the extraordinary entree went MIA, and outrage was the result. One Instagram user posted, "How could you get rid of the crab Alfredo? It's the only thing I ordered." Speculations about the dish's removal abound. In a thread dedicated to the pasta's disappearance, one Redditor theorized that it got the chop for environmental reasons, as crab became increasingly endangered. Sadly, this doesn't bode well for the dish's return. From fall 2019 through the holiday season, Red Lobster offered its customized Ultimate Feast, which included crab-stuffed shrimp Rangoon with a sweet chili dip. The authentic crab Rangoon, familiar to Chinese takeout, typically features a wonton shell with a tangy cream cheese and crab filling. In its own spin, Red Lobster uses fried whole shrimps, tails on, to hold the crabby filling instead.
Sounds delicious.
But sometime after the new year, the Rangoon disappeared from the menu and haven't been seen since. As late as 2023, one Instagram user demanded, "Bring back the shrimp Rangoon." The company suggested they forward their request to the chain's website. So far, no Rangoon. Classic tortilla soup, brewed in a zesty tomato base with succulent chicken, shredded cheese, and fried tortilla strips, is a mainstay of sit-down Mexican institutions on the West Coast. In retrospect, it was a strange move by Red Lobster to launch its own twist to the Southwestern stew, which appeared as an option for the four-course seafood feast in 2012. But diners slurped the broth with a fiery passion and belted out praise. It was corporate, however, who ended up cutting the cord on the tongue-tingling recipe. Just 2 years after it appeared on menus around the country, it was gone.
No soup for you!
Recall the chain's efforts in 2014 to rekindle its image as a seafood-first establishment, and you'll see why the spicy tortilla soup didn't make the updated menu. Although the dish was well executed, it didn't fit the coastal vibe. Makes sense. And so, spicy tortilla soup, farewell. You'd think you wouldn't wander into a Red Lobster if you didn't appreciate fish, but while plenty of diners go for the shrimp kebabs, some patrons are ordering the burger or Caesar salad. Enter the maple glazed chicken, a non-fishy crowd pleaser, and a dish slightly off the beaten path of the typical fast casual selection. However, somewhere down the line, the plate took an unannounced hiatus. This can be inferred by the news of the dish's triumphant reappearance in April 2023, but with its unveiling, the chain spilled a surprising tweak to the recipe: chopped bacon. It's a savory to sweet meat cute, and Red Lobster clearly thought it made perfect sense for the dish's comeback. Unfortunately, regular clientele weren't too keen on the change in recipe, which was made evident by the complaints circling through Facebook.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
At least one diner claimed the 2.0 version was inferior to the original to no avail. Maple Glazed Chicken 2.0 is here to stay, leaving the original just a sticky sweet memory.